Hi, welcome to the Armed Guardian podcast. I'm your host, Brian, here with Crystal, who's with us via audio today. And then our guest is Amy Lucas. And today we're going to talk about getting training, how important it is, and how to vet out your instructors for classes that you may attend. So, without any further ado, Amy, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, wonderful, and getting ready after the podcast here to go out and get on the tractor and do some mowing on our around our blueberries and everything on our property. So I got a long evening after we get done here.
Oh, that's an unfortunate evening. Well, I mean, you got to keep the blueberries alive, right?
Yeah, got to keep them. Grass is starting to grow like crazy around here. So yeah, it's we had our last cold snap last night. I think it got down to 37, and that was according to the almanac. That was the last cold snap that we'll have for the year until next winter.
Right. Well, that's good to hear. That's good
Yeah,
news.
Crystal, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I had to end up going and getting my granddaughter from school today, so I totally forgot it was Wednesday. I was thinking it was on a Thursday. My picked up, but here I am.
All right. Well, glad you could join us here. So we'll jump in and start the get everything rolling. Amy, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in the industry of firearms?
Sure. My name is Amy Lucas, and I'm the owner of Steel and Stilettos Firearm Training. I've been training. I started my business in March of 2020, and that was obviously during COVID, if you can remember that.
Yeah.
But I've been training with firearms and training others in the field of law enforcement for over 20 years. So
Okay.
I started my career real young. You know, I was 20 years old and couldn't even own a gun yet, but right there, not long after I turned 21 and was able to take the firearms courses through the Michigan Department of Corrections, where I was an officer for 20 years, an investigator and field training investigator, a lot of different positions within the department. But the training was what most important during all of those years is making sure that I got out of there every day. And
Yeah.
so when I retired, I just decided to take it another step and still continue to train and educate others on how to be responsible with firearms and how to defend their lives.
Okay. All right.
So
So
I am a USCCA instructor, certified firearms instructor, and a USCCA training counselor. I'm an official partner with the United States Concealed Carry Association. I teach many different types of classes, some non-shooting courses and also shooting courses and the concealed pistol license as well. And I do some instructor development courses. I've created actually a lot of different courses throughout this small amount of 4 years, just because I've realized that there's so many areas that I need to reach, you know, and reaching all the different
right.
types of people out there and what they're looking for.
Okay.
I agree with you. A lot of times people hear firearms instructor and they think that's all you do, but
Yeah.
there's so much
Right.
we do than just teach people how to use firearms. So I commend you on doing that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed. We started then about the same time. I started in March of 2020, so made the business and everything, and I'm learning that a lot of different aspects out there for the mass shooter threat, the women, focusing on children, and then not so much just the firearms, but the legal aspect, the psychological aspect, you just different other things that a lot of people just don't realize. First aid, that's the big forgotten topic I hear on a lot of people. I hadn't thought about taking first aid classes. Well, you know, like our interview with Brian McLaughlin from Mountain Men Medical. We're carrying the thing to make holes in people. We need to carry stuff to patch the holes in people if it was what us, a loved one, or something like that. So yeah, it's a lot of different things in the industry of firearms that are more than just firearms. So uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So first big question is, why is training important both for the beginners and the experienced shooters?
Well, training is important for both, right? So for the inexperienced shooter, it's important to grasp the concepts and safety and all the things that come along with that, and the handling, the storage, the range etiquette, all of that stuff. You know, it's important to really just start with the safety and continue working with that person. You know, it depends on that person, how fast we go, and it depends on a lot of different things. But whether you're inexperienced or experienced, there's training is important. You know,
Right.
repetition is key with anything that builds your confidence, which makes you feel more, you know, able and ready and prepared. And it obviously skill development for your inexperience is important, but also your experience, continuing to develop your skills and get with what the latest gadgets are out there and being able to acclimate to them, because you know you never know what your student's going to show up with, and you're the expert, right? So skill development is really important, and then obviously your legal and ethical considerations to think about, making sure that you're, you know, the inexperienced and experienced are very well versed in the legal aspect and the responsibility that comes with it. And
Right.
for the, you know, and continuing to learn about the laws and the rules, because as you know, and we all know, they change all the time, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell people that take my classes when they start out, I said, no, I encourage them to keep training, just because firearms is a perishable skill. It's just like riding a bike. If you don't ride in a while, then uh, next time you try to get on it at age 48, you're kind of unstable and all over the place, unless you know constantly are riding. And that's the analogy that I include in my classes, especially the beginners, is encouraging them to continue, because it's just going to make you better, more proficient, and build on your baseline that you've started in your beginner class.
and even with your experienced shooters, you know, one of the things, like if I ever go to different training sessions, the first thing that we cover is safety, right? And that's important. But sometimes I think a lot of times the experienced shooters get a little complacent with safety because it's second nature to them, or so they think. And I recently heard of an incident with an instructor that almost shot his finger off. You know what I mean? Because
Wow.
he was cleaning his gun. And that's what we hear on the news, not our fellow instructors, right? And
Right.
so even if you're inexperienced or experienced, it's still important to, you know, continue training and really just adapting the methodology of all of it, you know.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's like you know, things also evolve in our industry. How much, you know, from I don't know about with you with your firearms training. Whenever I was in law enforcement and in the military, we taught we were taught a lot of weaver stance when shooting, and part of it is the keeping the gun sight away from the attacker, but they have evolved and now are training a lot of officers to do the isosceles, changing their attitude and making them, when they do encounter something, to shoot isosceles if they're able to, because it's a better, more stable platform. But it's like things evolve. You know, the cup and saucer grip.
Yeah.
Just things like that, and that's something that staying on top of it will help you both, I think, personally, and in a situation where you may be involved and have to face attorneys and juries and stuff like that. That will be more beneficial to you as you keep on with the training, that you're up to date, or you're trying to stay up to date, and not just somebody that, hey, I took a class and that's the last class that I ever took 10 years ago. And
Right. Right. Well, we all know that line that a good instructor is always a good student, right?
right. Yeah.
Keep going, keep training.
Yeah. Did you have something, Crystal? I think I cut you off a
No,
little bit.
no, I say that I agree with you, because
Yeah.
we're all learning, and if anybody says that there's no more need to get educated or learn anything, then I would stay away from that person.
Yeah. So once we get people into training, or people that are looking to expand on their training, Amy, how do we recommend people vet out their potential instructors? What are things that they should be looking for to make sure that they're getting quality instruction?
I actually wrote a few things down because as I'm getting a little bit older, my memory isn't as good. And I want to make sure that I don't forget any of these things. So really finding a great instructor is not going to be as difficult as you think, especially if you're in Michigan. We have the most amount of instructors than any
Oh,
other
wow.
state. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
But just in my area alone in Detroit is 658 instructors in my area.
Wow.
Wow.
Right? So how do you vet an instructor from 658 instructors? Well, the first thing that I would say is the most important is research and word of mouth, right? So researching, really looking into the instructor's background, their credentials, their qualifications, expertise, and maybe even reading anything on them, any publications or achievements that they've made or had, and really, so that would be really important is researching, looking at their reviews from class is also very important. I have reviews that come not only through my USCCA dashboard, but I get Google reviews as
Right.
well. And it's very important for the person that might not be on the USCCA dashboard, but just, signing in and looking on Google for an instructor in their area. And so it's important for them to see the reviews and my bio and what I offer. So reviews and recommendations are also, word of mouth is everything, because if your friend took the class, well, and she liked it, then you're most likely going to enjoy it too. Or they'll be
Right.
very candid with you about how it went for them. Maybe even looking at some sample content. Maybe if they have a YouTube channel, maybe you can see, kind of their thoughts and beliefs around different things, or even just how they actually taught something online, or just some sample content. If look at their website to see if there's any videos that they have of themselves, and engage with your instructor. I tell you what, if I get a phone call and somebody's interested in something, I promise you I can sell them on me.
Yeah.
And that's really important. Having a personality is important, being able to engage with people, and and not every person that I talk to is going to take that class just based on my personality. Maybe it doesn't meet their need, right?
Right.
But at least, a good instructor is going to also have other people in their back pocket to, really just say, hey, you know what, I can't do that for you, but here's another person. And so I've aligned myself with whatever I can't do, somebody else I know can. Right. So engage with the instructor, ask them the questions, maybe talking about a little bit about more about the course that they're offering, and does that align with your needs and wants for that particular course? Checking for red flags is also important. And how do you check for red flags? Well, that's just, again, another review, or maybe there's some inconsistencies when they're talking to you about what the
Right.
course is about, or it's just they seem like they don't really have an established, way of explaining that course or whatever. But there's, there could be even complaints from previous students, or, there's all kinds of things that you could be looking for. But when we talk about red flags, we're also talking about trusting your gut, right? And
Right.
we talk about that even in our classes. Trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, or if this person seems nice enough, but I'm just not feeling it, just go with that too,
Yeah.
And then you can also just verify credentials. And it's probably not going to be as easy as a process. I mean, there's a lot of people that could really just go on their website and list a whole list of credentials. How can you check them? Well, with your certified, agencies that do certify these instructors, USCCA, NRA, they can verify credentials as well. So that's just some of the things that I was thinking about when vetting an instructor.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people, eh, and well, I don't want to jump because of a little question later on, but the vetting, go into, like I said, go into their website. If they've got a established business like you and I do, checking with the Better Business Bureau, checking with their local chamber of commerce, things like that. Some other avenues that you can kind of vet out, your instructor and their business. So yeah, it's a important thing, I think, to make sure you're getting someone that is certified, not someone that just said, "Hey, I'm gonna wake up today and I'm gonna start teaching firearms," and
Mhm.
may be able to, like here in Georgia, since we don't have not like in Michigan where you've got to take a class and you got to be a certified instructor. Joe Blow can start a training academy here in Georgia, and no, it is what it is.
Exactly, exactly.
So, okay. What are some of the different certifying organizations that you're familiar with, and what are some things that people should look for when they're looking at these certified instructors from these organizations? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the ones that you're familiar with?
Is it me or Crystal?
For you, yeah.
Okay, okay. So just some of the we had a little conversation about this before we got started, but just I'm not familiar with all of the different certifying agencies. I just know that when I went and looked for mine, I definitely was sold on the United States Concealed Carry Association, which is the USCCA. So that is one of your certifying agencies, USCCA, and then of course we've got the NRA. That's another certifying agency. And we have, there's a lot of, in every state, there's different training organizations, state specific. And then there's a lot of different firearm training academies and that you could earn certification through them. But the thing is that with the firearm training academies, everybody could just open up an academy and just say, hey, we're going to teach you everything from A to Z. And, you know, really just, again, going back into vetting your instructor or your academy. So that would be the same thing, right? Just making
Right.
sure it's credible, making sure that it counts if you print out a certificate. Does it count anywhere besides in that frame? You know what I
Right.
mean? And just making sure that it's legit.
Okay. All right. What about you, Crystal? You got anything down in Florida that you see that you're familiar with, as far as certifying organizations other than what we've talked about?
Not really, because I stick with the USCCA and NRA. I have certifications in both, so I'm familiar with those two. But as far as any other ones, those are typically the two that we stick with. Now,
Okay.
yeah, there might be state ones, but as far as getting somebody certified, let's say for the concealed carry, these
Mhm.
are the two organizations that are what we usually use.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay. All right. So, Amy, what kind of value can you get from repeating a class with the same instructor or even a different instructor?
Well, there's value for both, right? So repeating the class with the same instructor, I mean, reinforcement of concepts that they've already been teaching you, and building on those same skills. I think if I had a person that came in for my my 6-part series of quick hits on every Tuesday we join for an hour, you know, and talk about something different. It just takes them to that next part of the series. So I think that's kind of important to continue on. And you already kind of know their strengths and weaknesses, and you've already
Right.
developed a rapport, which is really important, is
Mhm.
that
Oh,
rapport. But I'm sorry, Crystal?
I said, yeah, you're right about that. It's always good to build
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, that rapport is really important. And so with you know, just that and then having a deeper understanding by, you know, taking that same class over and over. It's funny because when this question came up, I thought about one particular student of mine that every time I have a class in Adrian, Michigan, I have that same student in that front row. And she's taking my course, I would say probably about 15 times now. And
Wow.
she says, I mean, she's an older lady. She's probably between 70 and 80 years old, but she said every time I learn something new. And but she just loves to just come and she said, I just pick up something new every time, or it just gives me it reminds me, it reinforces kind of the things
Right.
that you've already talked about. And so that way she does have that deeper understanding of what those concepts are and also just, you know, the skill refinement, like so now you know I take her to the range every time now. So over the course of these 15 different sessions, I've seen the progression and I already
Right.
know where her weaknesses are on that range as well.
Yeah.
So that's really important. Or if you had a different instructor, there might be teaching the exact same course, but everybody's got a different way of
Yep.
teaching or way of saying. So maybe it really just hit different
Yep.
from someone else.
Yep.
So there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I say that, you know, I love people to take all of my courses. And but I also do recommend they go elsewhere as well, you
Yep.
know, because it is important to learn from others.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you do the same thing that I do. I tell people, I'd love to have you take all of my classes, but if you take a class from someone else, I'm not going to be upset. No, I want you to continue your
Right.
education, and I want you to learn. And I may explain something one way, and it just doesn't resonate with you, but you go take a class from another one, and the light bulb goes off. Like, I know what he was talking about now, and they make
Mhm.
that connection. So it's just like human beings in general. We're all different, so no, we're not all going to be the same. We're going to have different experiences, and that also goes into education as well. You got some that are visual, some that are auditory, and some that are tactile. So um, yeah, it's I really encourage them. No, like I said, I do the same thing you do, encourage them to come back, but I also give them that opportunity to go seek out, that I wouldn't be upset if they sought somebody else to take training if they decided to. So,
I
Yeah,
do
and
this.
that's kind go ahead, Crystal, go ahead.
I do the same thing. And sometimes if there's an instructor that I know that's a really good instructor, I'll tell one of my students or tell my students, listen, I know somebody that's giving this class, you might want to take it. And they appreciate that, and they'll do the same thing for me. So it works out not only in educating our students, but also cross promoting our businesses with one another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with aligning myself. When I first started, I didn't align myself with anybody. And I felt like, I was really, really protective of my brand and I was nervous about letting anyone else be a part of it. And I realized very quickly that I'm only one person.
yeah,
And I
Mm-hmm.
realized it also takes a lot more people, and I'm not the best at everything.
yeah,
So I've aligned myself through these 4 years, that I've aligned myself with great, great other female and male instructors. That way, no matter what, if somebody says, I want a class for this, I've got the person to promote. And whether they choose them or not, that's fine. I just want to
right,
have the resources available for them.
yeah, yeah. I think that having that cadre of people around you to where you can recommend, somebody that maybe you're not comfortable with, a somebody in their shooting style, or no, say for me, I teach a lot of women, but no, I know that there are some women that are just, they would prefer having been taught by another woman, but I like being able to have that ability to recommend them to go seek somebody else to get maybe a more personal touch training, or make them feel more comfortable.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and then it's like with rifles. I'm not a I can teach. I've shot rifles before. It's not my forte, but I know people that are big rifle people, like your cohort Trampist down in Jacksonville. I'm getting ready to try to take a class with him here sometime this summer if he gets his schedule put up where I can make it, with between him and his kids competing in their karate and stuff, their
I
martial
know,
arts.
right?
But
Busy
yeah,
family.
yeah, it's just like the rifle and even shotgun. No, I've carried both when I was in law enforcement. I've hunted before, but it's just not something that I'm proficient in, and I realize that I'm not proficient in it, and so that's one of the things I'm looking to expand my training on, and that way I can become more acclimated to it to be able to open up a possibility of teaching some rifle, shotgun classes and stuff like that. So,
Absolutely.
okay, next question is, how should one approach training? Whenever they sign up for a training class, what should they expect, or how should they prepare for attending that training?
That's for me again?
Yeah, yeah. We'll start it whenever I ask them. I'll just
Okay.
open them up to you, and then if Crystal has something, we'll interject after you do your spiel.
Yes. Okay. So the question was, would you rather take many courses quickly or
um, See, it was how should one approach their training? Should they, take as many courses as they could, or should they build on their skills first, like quality over quantity? What's your thought on the training speed, I guess?
Well, the training speed depends on the individual and their and where they're at, you know. So sometimes you do have to start out at the beginning, and maybe you're already kind of well versed. So maybe you might go through the beginning to get to the steps to the next stuff. So that's understandable. But we really want people to get them skills and, you know, get them where they need to be before we keep moving on, right?
Okay.
Like learn the skill, get the skill, you know, get it proficient at it, and then move on and and then continue to take another or the next course. But
Right.
I would say that if you're taking courses quickly, you're going to be exposed to a wide variety of topics, and you get to explore the opportunity for different areas of interest and find out what, you know, would be best for you. And that's the one thing about taking them quickly, to find out what area you want to really take that deep dive in. And so maybe you have like a deadline. Like there's a person that reached out to me this morning and said, my daughter's leaving April 11th. She's going to be a traveling nurse and she's going to be heading to Seattle, and I'm nervous and I want to get her ready. So for
Right.
us, you know, I'm going to be doing something a little bit more quicker for her. And you know, but it'd be easier because it's just a one-on-one, right?
Right.
So that just makes sense, right? We've got a deadline. But if there's no deadline and we're just learning the skills, it's important to really learn the skill, practice it, you know, practice before we move on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I do believe that, yeah, quality over quantity for sure.
Yeah. And no, again, it goes back to the human nature. Some people learn and retain that skill right from the very get-go.
Yeah,
I've had students
yeah.
that, you know, teach them and they're already getting uh 2-inch groupings and stuff from the get-go, and then I've had others that are having some problems, and you know, it's like, okay, well, let me work with you a little bit after the class or in another one-on-one setting to kind of help them. And usually it's just something small, but it's you know, and I that also doing that, trying to encourage that one that's maybe struggling is, you know, you're not kind of pushing them to the side saying, no, you're not important. This one over here is doing good, so I'm going to gravitate to him because he's doing awesome and everything, or she's doing awesome. And I like to just try to be able to put everybody where they're, you know, they feel on the same level, whether they're doing well or if they're struggling. So
And that would be
You
a good question for their instructor is, what do you believe my next step should be? Should
right,
I still, am I ready for the next step, or should I concentrate on what I've just learned?
right,
And so that could be another good way of finding out what the next step is and am I ready?
okay. What were you going to say, Crystal?
No, I forgot what I was gonna say, but I had something else back. But what I do is after the class, you pretty much analyze your student. You know where they're at, and then you can recommend. Okay, so you know this is what you did today, and we go over it. We have like a debriefing, and then I'll suggest what their next steps are, because sometimes they have no idea, and they'll sit there like a deer in headlights, like now what? So if you guide them along and you come up with a little plan, it makes that transition a little bit easier for them. I mean, that's just in my
Yeah, that is great, Crystal. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do follow-up emails, and I'll, you know, I'll go over what we did that day and the areas that we need to work on, but I don't make it so it's like a threatening thing, like you better do this and you did this all wrong, you know. I make it fun,
Right.
and then they're very receptive.
Well, I
Yeah.
love the fact that you take the time to address that person individually. That's not a group email, that's an individual
You know,
email?
everything that I do with my students is always one-on-one. I always address them one-on-one, and if we're in a group, with especially working with females, we always encourage each other. We're not like, oh, you're doing really bad, oh, you suck. No, the other women will get in and say, listen, you're doing a great job, and you know, I was struggling with this. So it makes it easier in the group, because I noticed, like, I grew up the one student that didn't understand anything. I was always one raising my hand, I don't get it, you know. So I know what it's like to be that student that doesn't pick up things a lot quicker than the others. So maybe that's why it's easier for me to work with students like that. But I just find that with the women that I work with, they're really helpful to one another. They encourage each other, and they're, rooting for one another. And it does make it a lot easier for those students that are having a little bit more difficult of a time picking up whatever it is we're training for.
Yeah, and that's something that I just realized going back to what we were talking about vetting is whenever I take my class is over, I send an individual email out to the students. Usually, I'll give them a encouraging word. Of course, I'm also asking them if they thought my training was relevant for them to leave a review and everything. But then I take class pictures. I take a picture of them with their target that they shot, and then I take a group picture and I'll send that to them individually, so that they've got something that they got pride to. But then I also, after that individual email, I send out a monthly newsletter where I talk about a topic typically that's relevant in either the gun industry, upcoming laws. Maybe it's a new course that we're rolling out with our business. And then I'll do a training schedule, and then I'll do two dry fire drills that I give them. And either I'll attach a target that they use, so whether it's the uh, Mozambique or the 26662 drill, whatever it is, I attach that where they can print it out so that they've got something to take to the range or wherever they're shooting at. And then, I just encourage them to continue on with their training with those drills. And I've had a lot of good response from people. Hey, I appreciate these drills because they're helping me. I wouldn't have known where to go to find these drills and everything. And then I use the the Steve Burnett handgun drills book to do a lot of these. And that's just something that I found that is a lot of students like. They like that continued follow up with the interaction to help them progress, and it verifies me as an instructor, which is something that I think, asking your instructor, okay, after I take a class, do you reach out to your students, or how would you communicate with me? Some instructors may not have a newsletter or a mass email that they go out to their students. So that's something else that I think that you could dive into to kind of vet a instructor for your personal needs.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. I've always had a lot of issue with my emails being blocked. So I have a private Facebook group for all my students. They can come aboard and watch. So like every month I'll do live fire training. So we'll do like this, a Zoom. I'll do a question and answer day. We get together. I also do tours of the gun shows. So the students will meet me at the gun show, and we'll go and they'll see the different firearms, the different holsters, and it's just a fun day, and they all love that. So if you're just going to the range and practicing their live fire without anything else, they're really missing out on so many more things that you have to offer. And not only that, but it builds relationship with the student. They want to keep coming back for more, and they want to bring their friends and family on board. I have students that come from Trinidad. I've had students that come from and I'm in South Florida. So if you do a great job and you offer this, people are going to come. So I think that's really important for us as instructors to encourage them to do additional training with us, not just at the range.
Okay. Yep. I fully agree. Yeah, I have a Facebook group too that I'll sometimes put out questions like drill of the day, or how are you, just something small, just to kind of get them thinking. Maybe it's a situation. I'll throw out a situation. What would you do?
Yeah,
things like that.
I do that too. I do the scenarios, what we do, and I'll give them homework. Okay, when you're out tomorrow, give me 3 things that you noticed somebody was doing, or things like that. But it really does make a difference when you do these.
Okay.
Well, I love those ideas, guys. Thanks.
Feel free to take them, Amy. Incorporate them.
Taking notes. That's great stuff, guys.
Amy, I have an idea for you too, if you ever want to do it. I do fun bingo and trivia night with my students. So I'll have a safety trivia night. I have like concealed carry bingo night. I do things like that, and they love it. They'll bring their friends.
I would love that too.
You should see my bingo cards. They're actually really cute. So I do different ones. It costs a little bit of money to do it, but it's about the education, and it makes learning fun. So I do interactive learning rather than just sit there and lecture somebody. We do Suicide Awareness Month. We do human trafficking. So all these things that make it a lot of fun, and the women love it because I do women's only classes.
Okay.
So
Wow, that's great. I'm definitely gonna give you a call.
yeah.
Okay, so our next and final question, in the civilian concealed carry, how important are non-shooting courses in your development? And we briefly touched on this already, but anything else you want to add to that or dive into it a little bit deeper?
Yeah, well, the ultimate goal is to avoid using it to begin with. So that's why I've made a couple different programs that I have. I have the Aware and Prepared program. It's a situational awareness for women. And so that does not involve firearms at all, because guess what? There's a lot of people around that aren't interested, female or male, in carrying a firearm. So let's start having the conversation of how to avoid it to begin with. And let's talk about how to recognize threats or threat assessment and identifying different things that people could just pick up on that doesn't, going with your gut feeling. One of in that Aware and Prepared class, the main focus that the start of the program, we really talk about The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker.
Okay.
And I heard you, Crystal. I know that you're probably excited. You love that book too, huh? But yeah, so it's just kind of it's just really just, it's stuff that people, I might not even be teaching them anything new, but they're just like, you know what? I just don't think about it. And I said,
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm here to do, is just to remind you that we can avoid it to begin with. So that's why I came up with that program. I came up with another non-shooting course, which was the Real Estate Safety and Awareness program that USCCA shortly developed one as well. So I've been teaching realtors for a while, and I've found that in all of the real estate agencies that I've went to, like probably 2% have taken a firearms class. Because it's just, I don't know if it's the demographics or the type of people. I don't know what it is, but I do know that they're interested in being more safe. They just might not be interested in the firearm. So I've created courses around the firearm and not including that, to where they feel comfortable coming and learning about some non-lethal options or just being more situationally aware.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's one of the big things that I push. Our primary being concealed carriers is the firearm, but then we've also got to be prepared for the legal, the psychological, the first aid, and situational awareness. Everything is a huge cloud, and firearms is just a small portion of it.
Right. Absolutely. There's so many other things too. Like I do Stop the Bleed. I do Stop the Bleed in the community as well, and so we can all be our own first responders. And whether that's defending ourselves or saving someone,
Right.
or so there's a lot of just really great options for non-shooting courses to
Right.
really just start people thinking in that way. And eventually, if I'm good enough, I can kind of sway them over to my side, but it's all good if not. And I'm going to prepare them for whatever whatever they want to be prepared for,
Right. Okay. All right.
I
or
think,
whatever they're ready for.
oh yeah.
Go ahead, Crystal.
No, I think a lot of times for the students that don't think they're ever going to need a firearm, once they get into a situation, when things get really nasty, that's usually when you get that call. Listen, somebody just tried to break into my house, or somebody tried to get into my vehicle. I think I need to have a firearm. And that's where
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot that they never would carry a firearm. Oh, I don't think I could ever shoot anybody. But then something bad happens, and now that whole, thought process shifts.
Yeah.
And now
Exactly.
they feel that they can use to protect themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah, that's great. I think as all three of us being instructors, it seems like we kind of have that same idea, but it's good. I like the podcast because I've had some guests on that had made me think, okay, maybe I need to change something or add something to what I'm doing, or maybe I'm doing overboard on one area. And I like having these, I guess you could say, a round table with fellow instructors where we can kind of have conversations that help us ourselves be more professional and evolve our training to our students and everything. So
Yeah, when I was an officer or a trainer for law enforcement, one of the big things that I taught back then was even just your de-escalation techniques and your communication skills and how to avoid situations from getting worse. So I think that's another area that I need to work on. Adding to my program a little bit more talks about de-escalation, besides just talking about it. Oh, you
yeah,
should be able to de-escalate. Well, what does that involve, right?
right,
Because it's more to it than just simmer down,
yeah,
right? You know?
yeah, more than the verbal judo that we used to go through in officer training. Okay, verbal judo. Are we gonna throw words at them that's gonna knock them over and stuff like that? No, it's
Right.
people just don't know what de-escalation is, and that's the topic that I've been researching myself, and
Good.
it's something I think is very important because we got a lot of, I won't say we, but there are a lot of people out there that have an ego, and that ego is something that's real hard to tame down if you don't practice taming it down. And sometimes we talk ourselves into situations we could have avoided if we would have thought about it a little bit or used some other method. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. You got anything else, Crystal, you want to add to today's podcast question?
No, I think that was pretty much it, but I'm glad I was able to make it and talk to Amy, get in touch with her too, because there's some programs I think
Sure.
that she like that I do that is worth a chat.
Okay.
It's
All right.
definitely going to be worth a chat. And I love South Florida. Just got back from South Florida, so I would definitely be looking you up.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw your cruise photos and the photo blast, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, it was a milestone birthday, so I definitely wanted to make sure that I remembered it. And I've been working so hard,
yeah,
Yeah.
so hard,
So
and I just felt like I deserved it.
yeah.
where are you going?
I ended up we drove to Fort Lauderdale and we got on the celebrity cruise. We went to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then we went to St. Thomas, Saint
Okay.
oh gosh, St. Martin, and Dominican Republic, and then back to Fort Lauderdale. We had 4 ports.
Oh,
It was just super nice, super nice.
you were right by me. I'm right here in
I
Fort Lauderdale.
know,
So you were right
I
so
know.
close.
I travel to Florida often, Crystal. We'll talk offline. I travel there often because I love it. And that's like our next question is what do you do for fun? Sorry,
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
And that's what I do. I travel. I love to see the world and explore new places and look for maybe my retirement home one day. And I'd love to end up in Florida for sure.
Yeah.
That'll be-
So, all right. Well, um, since you already answered that, what you like to do to unwind and compress, which was fine. I didn't even have to do any work. It just fell
I
in
love it.
place.
I love it.
So, I thank you for your time today, Amy, and thank you for this podcast. It was something that I felt uh, whenever I started the podcast. I originally was just going to focus it to students that I've trained, just as a kind of online education, maybe displaying a few products or things like that. And then talking with someone that we both know mutually, Rob Beckman, and then having had been on his podcast, the podcast bug interested me, and I got nibbled on it, and I started checking it out. And like I said, I wanted to started this as just something for my students, but then all of a sudden it's like, hmm, I'm enjoying this, and the students that I have had that have come on are enjoying it, and the guests, I'm blessed with the contacts that I've made and been introduced to. So it's been a win-win situation for me.
I tell you what, I've been paying attention and you've had some amazing people on your show, so I feel very grateful to even be asked, but great job, Brian. I'm really proud of you.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, you're
All right,
welcome.
so if I know in the on the online podcast page, there'll be a link to people that if they want to get some more information, but maybe they don't go to the podcast page, or they're listening and want to find out some more information or want to get in touch with you. How can people get in touch with you for questions, or maybe training with you that may be listening in
Right.
Michigan?
Absolutely. Well, again, I mean, on Facebook, you can find me under Amy Lucas or Steel in the letter N, Stilettos. Instagram is Steel in Stilettos. And, but if you want to just go on my website, you can contact me on there. I've got a contact me button, and that's steelandstilettostraining.com.
Okay.
Great.
Sounds good. I hope people. I know some people that are in Ohio. I've lived in Central Ohio for 8 years, and so I've got some family and friends up that area, and actually some people up in the Detroit area that I'm friends with. That I've put a bug in their ear to hey, I know an instructor if you're looking for training and stuff. So
Thank you.
maybe you'll get some input there. And but thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoy your rest of your day, Amy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Crystal. Hope
Bye,
you enjoy
Crystal.
yours.
Thank you.